Thank you, Madam President. I rise briefly just to talk about the Albany Motorplex. I've mentioned it a few times in here, and I just wanted to give a little bit more depth to the story. Now, since I was on the Albany Council more than 20 years ago, the community has been looking for a new place to race their vehicles. There is a current racetrack, but it's the housing, the spread of housing out into that area is getting very close to it, and so they need to find a new place. Of course, everywhere they go to put a new Motorplex, the residents around it all say, no, not in my backyard, I don't want it here, put it somewhere else. Recognizing that there are those people who like to race vehicles of one sort or another, and recognizing that they should get to put it somewhere. And this has gone on for 20 years, trying to find the right place to race these, combustion engines that are making lots of noise, have a lot of fuel spills, and a lot of other issues that go along with them. Now, there have been multiple possibilities put forward, but as I said, the community has been in opposition against these. Recently, a member who is on council and who also has been a candidate for the Nationals is also very involved in finding this spot, and I'm not sure to what extent his interest is included there, but they found a place by Down Road Industrial Area. You'd think an industrial area sounds good, but this industrial area still has only a few places. It's got CBH, it's got the chip mill, the wood chip mill, it's got the sandalwood factory, and another one that seems to have been a bioenergy sort of enterprise a couple of times. So it's not too developed yet. But here at Down Road, the area that they've chosen is actually in the water catchment for the city. It goes into the Marbleup Brook, and it's got a designated water catchment area. It's an area that we do want to keep clean. There's been an active group trying to keep that clean, the Torbay Catchment Group, of which I'm a member. And it's unfortunate because there seems to have been very little look in at this. It seems to have gone through the processes very quickly. It went through the council, of course, with a councillor's support on it. It's gone through the EPA saying no need for an assessment, even though it is in a water catchment area. Department of Water and Environmental Regulations, they put in some advice, but they didn't really have a say in what happens with it. And it's also an area where there are native flora and fauna, some endangered species and that. And the other difference with this, and one other thing, it's interesting that on Google Earth it already appears there as the Albany Motorplex, which is interesting because it's still just farmland. But, jump the gun, get it on there. Pass through council easily, no EPA assessment necessary. But unfortunately, there's a lot of issues with it. The noise, there's a house less than half a kilometre away from it. There are many houses within a couple of kilometres. And I know how noisy this can be, because I live about, say, 7 kilometres as the crow flies from the current Motorplex, or whatever they call it. And on a Saturday night, it gets a bit noisy in the summertime, so you actually have to close the windows so you can continue watching the television or whatever. So that's the noise at 7 kilometres away. So you can just imagine what sort of noises are going to be coming out of this new Albany Motorplex. And it's not just on Saturday nights. They'll have 7-day racing, and through the day and into the evening. So every day, the people living near there, or within 7-10 kilometres or so, are going to hear the racing engines. Just doesn't seem to be right. So my concern is that it is a difficult decision. I recognize that there are people who still want to race internal combustion engines, and until we, as a country, support the electric vehicle industry and move on to racing the faster electric vehicles, we're still going to have to put up with this polluting, noisy, damaging industry, or sport, I suppose you should call it. So my concern is with this, that we really need to actually look again at it and actually say, is this what we need? Is this good long-term planning? Do we need to put it at Down Road? Is there somewhere else we can put it? I don't know the answer to that, but this place seems to be the wrong place. Now, this is also just to branch out from that, because I'd like the government to think about this and see, is there some way they could step in, actually listen to the community there, find the right spot. There is the airport not too far away. Airport already has some noise. Maybe it's closer to that area. It would be out of the water catchment area. Chances are the flora and fauna wouldn't be too great. Maybe that's already been looked at. I don't know, but that's not my role. I'm just raising this. And you have to realize that Albany is my home, and I'll be back there a lot, so you'll hear a lot more from me outside of Parliament, fighting for the people of Albany and what we need down there. And one other thing that we do need there, right, you remember when I mentioned that down road is where CBH is, right, and the wood chip industry. The wood chip industry, when they started down there, they put it there and they spent the money to put a rail line straight to the wood chip factory, mill, whatever it is, to get the wood chips to the port on rail. Very far thinking of them. It worked well. It was doing well until somebody said, oh wait, we can actually chip the trees on site and we don't have to go through the mill and we don't have to go through down road and we can truck them in to the port, meaning we're going to have more trucks on the road and need a $175 million road to get them to travel an extra 10 kilometers to get to the port, when they could have just brought them to down road and put them on rail. But the other step to there is CBH is also at that industrial area. CBH is also just a couple hundred meters from the end of the rail line. And CBH was looking to extend that rail line to their hub and make that another place where those grain trucks could go to put the grain, to store the grain at the down road industrial site, store the grain there, put it onto the rail when the ships come in, get it down to the port. No need for that $175 million road that adds 10 kilometers to the trip for those trucks just to get them out of the roundabout. They wouldn't be going to the top roundabout at Albany if they could just go to down road. So I think what I am getting at here is, given it's in my own patch and I'll be down there a lot more soon, I think we really need to look at planning. Now, I look at it from the point of view of what we need in Albany, but it's across the state. And you know, if I get the opportunity to represent a wider area across the state when we change how the upper house is created, maybe I'll be able to look more widely again and get back onto that Tier 3 rail line issues, because we still need more there. It was pleasant to see that the federal government is recognizing we need more infrastructure. Unfortunately, in their $10 billion plan, it's road, rail, and ports. No, road, rail, and freight, which doesn't make sense because freight is on road and rail, I thought. But, you know, I get what they mean. I'm just hoping that we do continue and consider the options for freight into the future, and that we actually look at long-term planning involving the communities in the area, so that we don't just do the long-term planning for the best financial outcomes for the people who are developing them, but also for the communities. Because if you have community buy-in, it lasts a long time. It lasts lifetimes, and it keeps them happy and voting as you would like them to, because they can see that, you know, the government has their aims at heart. And if the wider you spread it, the more votes you get. Keep those people happy, keep them involved in the decisions, make some long-term plans that benefit all of us.